Alright, I'm Jonathan, and I'll be talking about the interrogation process during the Iraq War and how it's ineffective. Alright, there's this movie / documentary called The Road to Guantanamo, and it depicts 4 friends from England traveling to Pakistan to support their buddy in an arranged marriage. On holiday, they were taken by the Northern Alliance during the chaos of war and eventually taken to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and they were treated really bad. They were beaten, waterboarded, put in stress positions, and countless horrendous attacks. My claim in this speech is fighting the war on terror by means of torture in the interrogation process is ineffective. First, I'm going to talk about the productivity, and secondly, it violates international standards. Torture in the interrogation process is not productive. From the U.S. Army Training Manual, it reads, "No physical or mental torture may be inflicted on prisoners of war to secure them from information of any kind whatsoever. Prisoners of war who refuse to answer may not be threatened, insulted, or exposed to unpleasant or disadvantageous treatments of any kind." This has been succeeded by the Army Field Manual 2-22.3, which distinctively have the words enhanced interrogation techniques, which has been enforced by the FBI, CIA agents, Army Special Forces troops, and the Northern Alliance troops. In late 2002, a congressional meeting, the head of the CIA Counterterrorist Center, Cofer Black, states, "There was a before 9/11 and there's an after 9/11, and after 9/11 the gloves come off." He wasn't joking. As more and more reports come out, it has become evident that the U.S. has been using torture in the interrogation process. Examples are the Abu Ghraib scandal in Guantanamo Bay Camp Delta. The Abu Ghraib is a prison that the U.S. Allied forces used until late 2006 that housed alleged criminals and convicted criminals and alleged rebels. Harvard graduate and journalist writes in Logic and Terror that American policies in Abu Ghraib prison were sanctioned by Lieutenant General Sanchez, the overall commander in Iraq. He signed a memorandum calling for interrogators at Abu Ghraib to work with military police guards to, quote, manipulate the internees' emotions and weaknesses, and to assume control over lighting, heating, food, clothing, and shelter. I was going to provide some pictures depicting this scandal, but it was far too heinous for this classroom. So if you want to check it out, it's spelled AUBGHARIB, and just check it out on Google Image and see what you find. It's horrible. All right. The U.S. soldiers involved in the scandal were 12 soldiers, and some of them have been discharged. An article from the Washington by Josh White, it states, "Lieutenant Colonel Stephen L. Jordan was the highest-ranking Army official to have charges brought to him in connection to the Abu Ghraib's abuse." Basically, he was acquitted of all 12 charges, because the general that accused him didn't read his rights, just because of that. An excerpt taken from the Revolution newspaper reads, "Camp Delta holds 660 prisoners from 42 different countries, and they charge them with no charges, and they have no rights. No reporter or lawyer has spoken to any of these prisoners." According to May 2nd, 2004 report in the Washington Post, Guantanamo, a holding cell on the war on terror led by Scott Hingham, about $118 million was just spent to run these facilities, and another $110 million have been awarded to a subsidiary of Halliburton and Dick Corp called KBR, just for construction contract for just building this camp. Furthermore, evidence obtained from torture is unacceptable in the court of law. This is because torture as means of obtaining information is unreliable at best. An act that violates a person's constitutional rights cannot be used in the U.S. courts as mandated by the legislation branch. My second supporting claim is that torture in the interrogation process is inhumane. One way this proves this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Under Article 5, it states, "No one shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment or punishment." Torture in the interrogation process is therefore inhumane under this document that has been sanctioned by the United Nations as stated on the UN website. The Amnesty International Report 2008 states that 81 documented countries that practices torture during questioning the prisoners. Next, the Geneva Conventions consist of 4 treaties formulated in Geneva, Switzerland, that has set standards in international law for humanitarian concerns. These 4 treaties are the basis of humanitarian law across the world. The one that relates to torture in the interrogation process is Article 3, that gives humane rights to all prisoners of war. An editorial dated on February 2nd, 2005 in the New York Times reads, "It has become increasingly clear extensive random prisoner abuse is wrench failure and has nothing to do with the aid on the war of terror. Military doctrine says that interrogation has become pointless after a few days while torture produces false confessions. What's going on is not an awful but necessary and skilled inquiry reserved for the worst terrorists who hold secrets that could cost innocent lives. This is about a system that has hastily conceived, ineptly formulated, incompletely administered, and now is out of control. It lowers the humanity of people who practice it and citizens who condone it." Things are looking up. President Obama just passed a bill that states that there shouldn't be any torture in the interrogation process. In conclusion, by talking about how it's non-productive and how it violates international standards, hopefully I proved that it is ineffective in the war on terror. Thanks.
All right, the proposition's very clear. You've got a good preview of what the secondary claims are going to be. Your signposting is okay. I thought you got a little convoluted in the internal parts of the speech. There are a few places where you get sidetracked on issues. The humane issue, for instance, is not relevant to the claim about effectiveness, and that's really your main proposition. I do think that there's an argument to be made that violation, for instance, of the international standards could have some problem for the United States, but that's not really the focus on your second point. You have a couple of illustrations and examples, Abu Ghraib, for instance, and Guantanamo, although it's not so much the details that we need to have, like the pictures that you make reference to, as it is, what was the purpose of the interrogation? Did the interrogation produce any particular results? That's what we need to have, because measuring it on terms of effectiveness, that's what you're asking us to do. There is some good factual data about what the techniques, what techniques have been previously accepted, and there's good information about what the UN Charter is. You do mention prisoners of war a couple of times. I think the argument that's frequently been used is that the detainees are not considered prisoners of war, and so that's one of the complications in this factor about what the rules are that apply. You usually cite your sources pretty clearly. I thought that was solid. There's almost no audience contact in the presentation. You've got to watch your pronunciation. colonel is the way you pronounce that word, and you said it in a kind of an awkward way, and I think that kind of hurts your credibility a little bit. All right, thank you.